I want to start with a little bit of follow-up about the Schecter Stiletto Studio 4 bass that I had a video for about a month or two ago and was very excited about it at the time and then returned it. I mentioned very briefly in my video about the Fender American Ultra Jazz bass why I returned the Schecter, but I just want to talk a little bit more about what the real issues were. So one thing that was definitely a problem, that was the real impetus for me to want to do something with it, at least get it fixed, was that the blend pot for the pickups would short out if you turn it all the way one way or the other. So you couldn't solo one individual pickup. It didn't completely short out. It would sometimes work, but it would cut out abruptly in the middle of playing, and so it was not really usable that way. That could be fixed, but the problem that couldn't be fixed without at least severely reworking the body of the instrument was the way that the battery cavity is designed. So I would think most of the time a bass that has active electronics and needs a battery would have a door that you can pop open and take the battery out. The new jazz bass I have, which I'll be playing later in this video, has that. The Schecter had a screw-on plate that had two screws. So, okay, fine. That's one issue. You have to have a screwdriver handy if you're going to need to replace the batteries. Then when you open the cavity, or remove the plate and open the cavity, the space was really tight. There was some kind of foam in there to keep the batteries from jiggling around, but the compartment was so tight and with the foam that it was absolutely impossible with your fingers to get the batteries out of the compartment. And I even used a spudger from a computer repair kit that I have. And I still could barely get them out. And what was worse was that they were actually stacked on top of each other. So the end result is that bass really is not suitable for gigging as far as I'm concerned because it doesn't have a passive mode. If the battery dies, there is no sound, and it's not something that you can change feasibly in any reasonable amount of time in the middle of a set. So you would have to have a second instrument along for the gig, which I've done sometimes, but you don't want to depend on an instrument like that in a live performance situation. I don't know what else to say about it. So when I discovered that on top of the issue with the blend pot, I just decided it had to go back. Otherwise, it was a really great instrument. It looked good. The tones were amazing. I really liked playing it. It felt good, but it was just not going to work. So I ended up returning that and selling my Fender Player Mustang bass that you may have seen in some of my earlier videos and put that money towards the American Ultra Jazz, which I'm very happy with, and I'll talk more about that later in this video. So the next thing, I have a bit of an unboxing. This is kind of a fake unboxing because I've actually already opened it, but just wanted to show a couple of things I've got here. Of course, the bag of candy from Sweetwater. So the first thing I got is I've been using a Focusrite Scarlett 2i4, I believe is the version I've been using for a couple of years. That's what you're hearing me through right now. I went and got the Scarlett Solo because I wanted to have something similar to have on my desk, and I don't have a lot of space on the desk, so this is going to be something that I'll have there that I can work on things quickly without coming down here into the padded room. So I just wanted to quickly talk about this, and I'm going to switch over to this for the rest of the video shortly. But it 2 inputs, 2 outputs. It has an XLR in for a microphone and a TRS in for 1/4 inch in for an instrument, and 2 1/4 inch outs. USB for connecting it to a computer. That's what I'll be doing. And so we will see how this sounds next to its bigger brother. One thing I will note is that the construction of this seems a little bit cheaper. The front and back have this kind of shiny but cheap-looking plastic, whereas I think, yeah, the front and back on the 2i4 are metal, aluminum probably. So anyway, we'll check this out shortly. And then the other thing I got, and I was inspired to get this from a video that I watched recently. This is a little plug-in mini amp so that you can play wherever you go without having to have an amp or do what I've always done, which is just pluck really hard. It's not good for technique. So I'm going to try this out and I'll demo it later in the video and we'll see how it goes. Okay, we're back with the jazz bass and with the new Focusrite. So let me know if it sounds different. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the issues I was having when I first got the jazz bass. It was pretty much all about the setup, and it had to do with the fact that there was a severe change in climate from California to Minnesota in our coldest week of the year. Not the best time to buy this instrument, but these were not in stock anywhere else, so I figured I should jump on it while I could. It's considerably warmer now than it was then, and it would have been great to receive it today instead of when I did about 2 weeks ago. But that's, what are you going to do? So I found that I needed to tweak the setup multiple times over several days as it was adjusting to the humidity level and the temperature here. It's not 4 degrees below zero in my house, but it is a much different climate, even though it's indoors, and then the whole thing with the transportation from California to Minnesota was not great. So anyway, it finally is getting to the point now where things are sort of stabilizing. I have the truss rod adjusted the way I like it, so there's just a very slight, curve in the neck so that we don't have, the action's pretty low. Got the intonation good, but it took that much time to get it to the point where I could have the action as low as I want it, have the low amount of relief in the neck, and then be able to play without fret buzz. It's pretty much right there now. I took it to a rehearsal last night with the big band I play with, and I'm going to be demonstrating some of the different tones I was able to get using that. But overall, the setup is sounding really good now, and I just love the instrument. The one other thing that is not 100% perfect is, and again, it's weather related, and the fact that this is an untreated wood fretboard, is that, there's expansion and contraction of the wood. There's a slight bit of rough edges on a couple of these frets, but that I think is kind of unavoidable. I have not seen that happen with a maple fretboard, which has the lacquer on it. So that's where I think that the expansion and contraction of the wood is what's causing that. One thing I did notice last week at rehearsal was that the blend pot knob was a little bit loose, where I could turn it to the end and it could keep turning a little bit. And at the time I was worried that maybe the actual stem was loose and I was twisting things inside on the, inside of the control plate, but I was hoping that the actual stem was secure and it was just that the set screw on the cap was loose and that was allowing me to twist it farther. I confirmed that was the case. Everything inside is perfectly fine. I tightened the set screw and it was perfect. And I really love having the active-passive control switch. Totally depend on that. And in fact, that's what I'm going to be demonstrating a little bit later. A couple of the tones I was using last night in rehearsal were using passive mode, and then I switched to active mode for one of the songs, and you'll really be able to hear the difference between those. So that's everything I have to say about the status of the jazz bass. It's doing great. Okay, now I have the Vox mini amp. What is it even called? It's the Vox Amplug 2. I have it plugged into the jazz bass, and I've got it run for the purposes of this demonstration. I've got it run instead of headphones. It's going into my monitor speakers, so you'll be able to hear it hopefully on the video. Don't judge the sound of it based on that, because I'm sure that picking that up through this microphone is not going to be great, but we'll see how it goes. So first thing I'm noticing is that there is a bit of hiss, which is probably more due to this goofy setup than what it would sound like directly in headphones. I haven't plugged it into the headphones straight into my ears yet, but we're getting some tone out of it. So, sounds not too bad. There are some dials on here, which I'm not sure what they do, because I didn't prep for this at all. Seems like that might be a tone control. That's a volume control. Oh yes, there we go. All the way up. Now it's distorting a little bit at the maximum volume. There also is a rhythm tool on here, which, there we go. So one of the dials is for the volume on the rhythm, and I believe that it has 3 rhythm patterns. And then it turns off. So it just cycles through them and then turns off. And then the other dial is probably for the tempo. Doesn't seem to be for the tempo. I find it very odd that there's not a... I'm going to turn it off. I find it odd that there's not an easy way to set the tempo of the rhythm. I guess that's why you look at the owner's manual before you do a video demo. But we can get some music and I'm just making stuff up. So not too bad. Yeah, so that'll be a fun little thing to have on my desk as well. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about is some of the different tones that you can get out of the American Ultra Jazz Bass. This is some real-life examples from 3 songs that we played in the big band rehearsal I was at last night. So the first one we're doing, it's Funky Cha-Cha by Arturo Sandoval. And for this one, I wanted kind of a Jaco-style tone. So I'm in passive mode, and I have the blend pot turned all the way to the bridge pickup, and I have the tone at about 50%. And so with that, I get a tone like this. So the next song we did is a slow blues swing, Black Coffee. Words and music by Paul Francis Webster and Sonny Burke. And for this one, I wanted to have more of like an upright bass sound. So I have the blend turned all the way to the neck pickup, and I have the tone all the way down. And it sounds like this. Okay, and then the third song is, it's called a hip-hop shuffle, which I'm not really sure that that's what I would call this style, but the song is called The Next Big Thing by Brett Zvacek. And for this one, I switched on the active circuit. I have the bass and the treble turned slightly up, the mid turned slightly down, and I have the blend pot right in the center, so I've got both pickups. And you get a sound like this. All right, well, that's everything for today. I hope this was interesting. And if so, subscribe, do all that stuff that everybody says. And I'll see you next time.